Welcome to another nostalgia trip here on Stuview TV. Today I'll be revealing the UK's best-selling toys from every Christmas season of the 1970s. From classic board games to iconic action figures and everything in between, we'll relive the toys that brought joy to the hearts of 70s kids across the country. The best-selling toy of Christmas 1970 in the UK may well surprise you. Before I reveal what the top toy of 1970 in Britain was, one of the other bestsellers of that year is one of those toys that defined a whole generation. Cindy. First launched by Pedigree Toys in 1963, Cindy very quickly became the must-have doll for girls across the land. Marketed as the doll you love to dress, fashion played a huge part in Cindy's success, particularly with the bold styles of the 60s and 70s. So, just what toy could have beaten the mighty pulling power of Cindy to the number one spot in 1970? The answer is the Nerf ball. First released in the USA in 1969, the foam Nerf ball was marketed as the world's first indoor ball, with manufacturers Parker Brothers stating, "Throw it indoors, you can't damage lamps or break windows. You can't hurt babies or old people." The fact that pop band The Monkees helped to promote Nerf balls certainly went a long way in helping the brand become an international top seller. 1971 was a vintage year as far as toys were concerned. A number of that year's best-selling toys have gone on to become quite iconic in their own right, none more so than the Space Hopper. One of the defining images of the 70s decade, that strange-looking orange ball with horns is something that no true 70s child will ever forget. And I'm sure there are many of you recalling bouncing around your back garden while Dad tried to mow the lawn right now. Amazingly, this enduring symbol of the 1970s wasn't the top-selling toy at Christmas in this year, nor were other classic toys of the time, such as the Etch-a-Sketch and Weebles. No, that honour went to Mastermind, the strategy board game that everyone seemed to have but nobody ever played. Mastermind probably sold on the box image alone, that enigmatic pair who looked like villains from a James Bond film obviously proving irresistible to the British public. 1972 saw another unexpected contender top the sales charts at Christmas. It was the family card game Uno, developed the year previously, that took the number one spot for 1972. Maybe not the most exciting choice, but incredibly popular all the same. Surely there can't be yet another surprising top seller as we move into 1973. After all, this was the year of the Evel Knievel stunt cycle, one of the greatest toys ever made and another enduring symbol of 70s childhood. Many of us from that era have memories of knuckles scraping on the ground as we furiously turned the handle on the red box before our stunt hero went flying off into the nearest cabbage patch. This mightiest of toys must be the number one best-selling toy of 1973, surely? Well, actually, no. That year saw the emergence of Shrinky-Dinks. A strange concept for kids, really. Shrinky-Dinks were line drawings on sheets of plastic which could be coloured in and then cut out before being placed in the oven, where they would magically shrink in size and become rigid. More arts and crafts than toys, really, but still very popular today. Amongst the UK's best-selling toys of 1974 were products that were first introduced back in the 60s. The classic game Twister was first released in 1966 and still selling in high numbers by the mid-70s. 1966 also saw the introduction of Spirograph, which made everyone feel like an exceptionally talented artist. By the time 1974 came around, a number of Spirograph spin-offs had been released, ensuring it kept its place in the bestseller lists. Beating both of these classics to the number one spot for 1974, however, was the fantasy role-playing game Dungeons & Dragons, from which a whole new subculture was born. There aren't too many board games that have endured over the years more than Monopoly. Incredibly, this most legendary of games was first released way back in 1903. 72 years later, in 1975, it was still one of the best-selling games in the country. There can't have been too many households in Britain that didn't have Monopoly tucked away in a cupboard somewhere. Taking the top spot for 1975 was another board game, this time a much more recent release from 1973, the strategy-based Othello. Based on the 19th century game Reversi, such was the popularity of Othello, an official World Othello Championship was held in 1977, a tournament which still runs today. One of the must-haves for boys in 1976 was that elastic man in underpants, Stretch Armstrong. An incredibly simple concept, Mr. Armstrong could be stretched and pulled in all sorts of ways, and would then invariably return to his original size and shape. What more could a 70s lad want? Indeed, what more could lads from any generation want? Stretch Armstrong is still going strong today. Beating our malleable friend to the 1976 top spot was the Etch-a-Sketch inspired Magna Doodle. Unlike Etch-a-Sketch, however, Magna Doodle had the distinct advantage of coming with a stylus pen, making it far easier to draw whatever you wanted. Identifying the UK's best-selling toy of 1977 isn't that straightforward. Many resources list the Star Wars toy range as the top seller for that year. However, most of the Star Wars range of toys wasn't made available in the UK until 1978. The film itself wasn't released in this country until 27th of December 1977. In 2018, Argos published a list of their best-selling toys for each year. For 1977, they listed BMX bikes as their biggest seller. Not really a toy, I know, but if it's good enough for Argos, it's good enough for me. Toy manufacturer Milton Bradley enjoyed a very successful year in terms of UK sales in 1978, producing each of these entries for this year. While classic strategy game Connect 4 was actually first released in 1974, the electronic memory game Simon was a new product for 1978. No dinner party of the late 70s would be complete without guests desperately trying to remember ever-lengthening sequences of flashing colours.
Go down the drain. Simon is a master. He tells you what to do, but you can master Simon if you follow every clue. And if you think Simon's fun at the party, wait till you play it alone.
Simon with 5 ways to play from MB Electronics.
Taking the top spot for Milton Bradley in 1978 was the simple but frantically fun Hungry Hungry Hippos, an ever-popular favourite which is still around today. Rounding off our nostalgic trip through the wonderful world of 70s toys, the year 1979 saw a doll which started life as a greetings card character top the bestseller list. Strawberry Shortcake became one of the biggest crazes of the late 70s and early 80s, and not only included the fruit-scented dolls themselves, but also sticker albums, video games, and even bedding. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back to the toy shops of the past. Your company is always much appreciated. See you next time for more nostalgic memories.